honorable speakers. Is the debate getting hot? Is it getting hot? All right, silence, please. Allow me at this moment to invite the second engager, and that is Honorable William Kongor Deng.
Article 28 of the Universal Declaration of the International Human Rights clearly calls for fair and free world. There must be a proper order for us to enjoy our rights and freedoms in our own countries all over the world. Why send away the foreigners out of Africa? Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for the chance that you have given to me. I would like to extend my warm and sincere greeting to the respective table of juries, the club, the two antagonistic parties, not forgetting you, my wealthy and lovely audience. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good noon. I am William Kongor, the second speaker from the Negate side, here to strongly disagree with the topic of tonight's discussion, which wrongly states. This House believes that foreigners should leave Africa, which we team Negators are disagreeing with, and we believe that by the time you are all to leave this hall, we shall have convinced you that foreigners leaving Africa is a bad idea that will affect us later at the end. My lords, before I dive into my points, allow me to critique the views presented earlier on by the farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, I am disappointed. Disappointed because I came here mainly to fight a battle of facts, only to find out that the farmers are not ready for this battle of fights. Why do I say so? They are giving points that are not to my satisfaction. They talk of the following points. One, they are still talking of exploitation of our resources. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no government that will come from outside and start mining the resources of South Sudan without the agreement or notice of the government. There is always that piece of evidence that is supposed to be signed as an agreement. An agreement signed by two parties is not corruption. I don't see any reason why you should call it exploitation. Now, they are also talking of influence from the foreign currency. As my colleague tried to tell you the fact, but you are disagreeing with it, allow me to support her. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that these foreign currencies are being used all over Africa. If you talk about South Sudan being weak economically because of these foreign currencies, then you lie. Why do I say you lie? Because you did not understand whether other countries use these foreign currencies. She tried to mention countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, which are using these dollars in their countries. But the rate of dollar in their country is very low. What do you think about that? Are they not in Africa? Why is it that South Sudan having this rate very high? It is because our government is very weak. Therefore, work on your government before you blame the dollar. They talk. One of them says that Africa is not developing because of the foreign influences since the 19th. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may remind you, the foreigners who are here did not stop you from developing. It is you, the Africans, who are against yourself, you hate yourself, you are jealous of yourself, and therefore you will not develop and go forward. What is the point of these foreigners blocking you from developing? They say that they can do things on their own. I wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, it is like when the mathematics teacher is teaching you in the class, you may assume to have understood everything. But when the teacher later leaves, the teacher might have seemed to have left with everything that was in your mind. Your mind remains empty. This is the same case. Africans are assuming to have understood everything. But later when the foreigners have to go, trust me or not, you will still need them. Having class all those, my lords and my lady, allow me take you through my facts and the third part of my speech. To begin with, allow me to talk of economic ties. Ladies and gentlemen, when I talk of economic ties, most of you may not understand. But don't worry, I am here to make you understand. Economic ties refer to relationships and interdependencies between countries in terms of trade, investment, and financial flows. These can all be important and beneficial to us Africans with the help of foreigners. If I may remind you, much of our crude oil and other natural resources are being marketed abroad. And our oil, mainly in particular, our crude oil is being mined and refined by Chinese companies like the Greater Petroleum Operating Corporation, the Sinopec company, and so on. Now, in this case, some Africans, in this case, the farmers are still proudly saying foreigners to leave Africa. What do you think will happen to us with our oil, with our crude oil if they are to leave? I think we shall remain with our crude oil and it becomes useless because it will not be refined very well. According to a research we did, China had around 34 oil refineries in the year 2023, meanwhile Africa at large had, thank you for the warning, had 4. Ladies and gentlemen, when these foreigners are to leave, our oil in Africa and other natural resources will remain in Africa and we shall still suffer as they become useless in Africa. Therefore, we chief negators are saying that foreigners must remain in Africa and we live together as one people, so long as we set laws that will govern us and our relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, my second point of argument is based on lack of capacity to run our own affairs. I may not talk about 3 aspects at one, that is to say technological aspects, political aspects, and economic aspects. Therefore, these are all the things that we lack in Africa. Allow me to talk about them one after the other. Firstly is the technological advancement. Ladies and gentlemen, technologies that are used in Africa are imported from foreign countries like China, Japan, and many more. Technologies like the ones we use to set up our satellites, like those in South Africa, Nigeria, plus the rest of African countries are imported from those countries. Not only that, but we also get electronics like phones, televisions, radios, speakers, microphones like the ones we are using now. We all get them from these foreign countries. Secondly is the political aspect. I am not of doubt that without the foreign asset we shall have no weapons to defend many of our governments in Africa, as it is a well-known fact that no country in Africa has no enemies. It being internally or externally, we do that. Not only that, but we shall also need them in times of war. An example is South Sudan. During the war in 2016, international bodies were able to send troops to come and maintain peace in South Sudan. And this is my evidence to prove it to you. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, but we shall also lack political ideas like the democracy. This democracy we always practice in Africa. And we did not know about originated from the Athens that is in Greece, that is to say Europe. And is now being practiced in Africa. A very good example is Kenya. Recently, they impeached their Vice President, Honorable Rijika Gachagua. It is now being done in Africa, and we South Sudanese may do the same thing anytime from now. Therefore, in this case, we are learning from them. If you agree that we are learning from them, they should remain with us. Lastly about this is the economic factor. Ladies and gentlemen, other foreign countries engage in Africa in terms of trade, which may not be the case later when we have to send them away. Because they will go back to their countries and block the routes that are supplying us with goods and we shall have no access to their goods. There will also be no market for our raw materials, as I mentioned before, the lines of crude oil and many others. With these realities in mind, we the negators are wise enough to oppose this resolution. My lords, allow me now to summarize where I stand in this matter. I state again, who have been proven the fact that our economic ties will be affected by this policy they are running for, and also expounded on the lack of capacity to run our own affairs. Conclusion.
Allow me to invite Honorable Naomi Samuel for cross-examination.
Honorable, you said that if foreigners leave Africa, no one will find our crude oil. Question. What is the reason for studying petroleum engineering in Africa if we would not have qualified engineers?
Impressive. Your question is very nice. Well, to answer you, I would like to tell you that we, the Africans, we may learn it, yes, in the secondary schools and other institutions like the universities, but we are not taught practically, we are taught theoretically. Therefore, we shall have the knowledge and we shall not know how to apply it. That's why we call it these people who are taught practically to teach us before they go. Thank you.
Okay, what is the future of Africa if foreigners will be the ones refining our oil from now until the future?
I think the future is bright. Why is it bright? Because we shall still benefit from our oils if we were to set proper rules and regulations that will govern us and our relationships with them.
Okay, you said that foreigners do not stop Africans from developing. Question: if they exploit our oil, which will generate money leading to the development of our continent, how is it not stopping Africa from developing?
As I clearly stated before, an argument which is signed by two parties is not corruption, and in your case here we are talking about exploitation. We shall still get the percentage that we are getting now, and if we need development, that is to say if we are united later, we shall develop.
I didn't talk of corruption, but I talked of exploitation, taking advantage of somebody or something. Okay, you said that managing, like if we set rules, we are going to make sure that these people don't exploit our resources. Don't you think that China, there was an agreement between China and South Sudan, but because of taking advantage of that, they are exploiting our oil?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I won't agree with you yet it is a lie. Why do I say it is a lie? The Chinese government has a percentage to take, and we, the South Sudanese government, have our own percentage to take. How do they cheat us or exploit us if we are asking?
You're not asking me, I'm asking. You said that like there is a percentage to be given to the Africans, they don't exploit. Now, as I stated earlier before that the China, they take 5 billion from Africa. So if they take 5 billion from Africa, what benefit do Africans get from their resources if they are taking that huge percentage?
It is good that you mentioned Africa at large. 5 billion cannot be the only money that is got from all these developed countries. So if we are to talk in that matter, if we have good rules and regulations that will monitor our relationships, we can still give them that 5 billion.
Thank you, honorable speakers. This is taking us to the two last debaters, right? Are we ready to welcome them? Yes. Please, I need the room to remain quiet, okay? After the debate, we'll give you time to hang around and talk. Silence. Allow me to invite the last affirmative speaker, Honorable Deborah Alwell.